he is the Pitamaha of terrorism today. What you see terrorists today, he is a father figure to them. The latest you could see what Taliban is doing in Afghanistan. So Tipu Sultan is an inspiration for them. If you name the first terrorist, there may be a competition between Tipu Sultan and Aurangzeb. Who is better father of terrorism?
Namaste everybody, welcome to Chitti Media. This is your host Sharan Sethi. There's been one topic in the South, especially in Karnataka, which has been debated for a very long time. And the topic is, was Tipu Sultan a tyrant, an Islamic invader, a person who brutalized Hindus, Christians and Muslims alike, or was he actually a freedom fighter, like many historians tell? To give clarity on this, we have a socio-political activist from Mangaluru, Karnataka, Robert Rosario ji. Robert ji, namaste.
Namaste.
How are you, sir? I am particularly worried because you live in Mangaluru and we've seen the influx of cases coming down from Kerala. So I hope you and your family are safe.
You're not much worried about COVID.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, we do have bigger issues to deal with. And what we're talking about today is extremely interesting. And I have read some of your posts and I've seen some of your interviews, and you have some very interesting insights to share about Tipu Sultan. Now, let me get into the evergreen question that's eternally unsolved, right? Nobody has been able to solve this question. Because one side of the spectrum says, no, he's a freedom fighter. The other side says, no, he's a tyrant. In your own understanding, is Tipu Sultan a freedom fighter or a tyrant, Robert G?
No, there is no doubt about the fact that he was a tyrant. He was not only tyrant, I have told it earlier, I am telling it now also. He is the Pitamaha of terrorism today. What you see terrorists today, he is a father figure to them. The latest you could see what Taliban is doing in Afghanistan. So Tipu Sultan is an inspiration for them. If you name the first terrorist, there may be a competition between Tipu Sultan and Aurangzeb. Who is better father of terrorism? To that extent, he was a tyrant. So there is no question of accepting him as anything other than tyrant. But this, you said the unresolved question. Actually, it is not an unresolved question. It is a fake narrative, I would say. No, this country has seen a lot of fake narratives for the past, since independence. Throughout, there have been fake narratives and only fake narratives. And this is one of it. Vijrambhane Visha, highlighting a tyrant as a freedom fight itself is a fake narrative. The purpose behind it is, there are many purposes. I can say, see, the first and foremost question, freedom fighter. Now, what is freedom? In 1700 or end of 1700, there was no concept of democracy. America was just democratic by that time. Hardly few years it was into democracy. It was just invented. Nowhere else in the world there was something like democracy. And this freedom, the concept of freedom itself was not there. The Tipu Sultan is dead and gone. And after that, 50 years or 100 years after that, this concept of freedom struggle came. So naming him, creating him with this freedom struggle itself is the biggest order of fake narrative. Some vested interests are interested in making the hero. And he was a typical jihadi. His father was also cruel, but I would say his father was not typical jihadi to that extent. He was less educated, so it was better for him. No, the more one gets educated, the more radicalized he becomes. Nowadays, you can say throughout the world, the biggest terrorists are the highly educated ones. Those PhDs, doctors, engineers, and all. The less educated, less radicalized. So that was the case with Tipu Sultan. He was more educated. Father wanted him to be educated. He got educated in such a way that he became completely radicalized. So he was 10 times or 100 times more hopeless than his father, more cruel, more tyrant. And it's a typical madrasa education what he got. And typical madrasa education will teach you right from that day till this day, teaches only one thing: those who don't believe in Allah are the enemies of Allah. They are to be killed, they are to be eliminated, they are to be destroyed. And that's what he did it. And whoever are highlighting him today are the vested interest. Maybe in a Congress is interested in highlighting him to some extent, maybe as a vote bank, or maybe they want to divide the Indian society so that they get their political mileage out of it. So some vested interests are highlighting him. You cannot call him a freedom struggle. The very term itself is wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the biggest controversies around Tipu Sultan, when Tipu Sultan is often debated, Robert G, is that many, especially the Congress leaders, like you rightly said, and it's on public platforms, right? So it's not an accusation, but a statement of fact. Now, these leaders have said that he's truly secular in nature. And I remember reading an article just before the interview, and the article titled him Secular Sultan of South India. So, is he really secular because he donated to a few temples? This is one of the biggest myths that are around there. Can you break it down for us?
The person whoever said that secular, I don't know which person, which leader you are referring to, whoever said it, either he is a fool of the biggest order or he is trying to fool others. Either he is ignorant to the core. Ignorant to the core means he doesn't know the meaning of the secularism. Either he knows nothing about the word secularism, or he is trying to fool everybody. He thinks everybody is a fool. He can be fooled easily. That is the audacity, I will say. That is the audacity of that leader, whoever said that. That is the height of it. Now, to tell you what is secularism, these very people who brand themselves as secular, they don't know the meaning of secularism. So what is secularism? The word secularism was coined in Europe. The very meaning, it's a very limited meaning. It's not a very broad-based, broad meaning word. Secularism means keep the church out of political powers.
Right.
Now, keeping the church out of political powers, how Tipu Sultan was, how you relate him? He kept the church out of power. What did he do? Or he kept fighting the British, or you can term British as the church, so he is secular. In what way he is secular? These people who call themselves in Kannada, they say Jatyatita. So Jatyatita has nothing to do with secularism. Secularism, it's not an equating word at all. Jatyatita is not an equal word for secularism. Secularism means there is no equivalent word in Indian language, any of the Indian languages. Keep the church out of political power. How Tipu Sultan, you can attribute this term to him? I just don't understand, the height of political audacity, I would say.
Right. But, what is your answer to those people who say that he was truly secular and that Hindus have been living very peacefully under him? Because that is not the case in case of the Kodava violence or, many other instances. So could you please tell us about that?
Never. Nobody was peaceful under him. Neither Hindus nor Christians nor Muslims themselves. There are many sects in Muslims also. Some of the sects in Muslims themselves were unhappy. Forget about Hindus and Christians. So he tortured Hindus like anything. He did not leave anybody. Neither, not only Kodavas you named, whether it is Kodavas or from people from Chitradurga or from Mysore, the Iyengars from Mysore. He was literally, a tyrant, a killer, a jihadi, a terrorist. He persecuted Christians, we the Canara Christians of coastal Karnataka.
Yes.
So he did not leave anyone. Yes. He was very much anti-human. He was, very difficult to call him a human being at all. What sort of a cruel entity he was.
Right.
So you mentioned about some 2-3 temples he helped.
Yes.
I don't know whether he has really helped. Even if you assume he has done it, see, there are some political reasons. Say his chief priest was a Hindu, or who was advising him on. I heard he was believing in this what we say Jyotishya Shastra. So somebody was to advise him. So to please that person, his temple of choice, he might have given some donation there. it is purely a political reason. If today political parties go after these political schemes, just like that, you can't take everybody at a time. You have to break the people apart, then take one by one. That was a political strategy, if at all he has done it. And record after record show that he has destroyed temples. Just across his kingdom, he has destroyed temples. He has destroyed churches. Right. Churches he has destroyed to all. No, not even one he has spared. Right. To come to the churches. Can I come to his damage to our churches?
Sure, please do. In fact, I wanted to ask you this before you proceed on to that. In popular history, at least people are aware that Hindus had been targeted by Tipu Sultan and a lot of other people. But in fact, even when I was doing my research, and I'm a person from Karnataka who is very passionate about reading history, and I was pleasantly surprised about the kind of atrocities that he committed against the Catholics in Mangalore itself. So please do tell us more about this.
See, we the Christians, Konkani speaking Catholic Christians of Karnataka, Konkani is our mother tongue. We have a history of about 500 years in this coastal Karnataka. Before that, we were not in this area. We migrated from Goa. So in this entire 500 years, if you see, we don't find a bigger enemy than Tipu Sultan. Our biggest enemy in these 500s is this only man called Tipu Sultan. He destroyed us completely. He completely disintegrated our community. He killed 75% of our population, 75%. He butchered. 25% remained because he died on an untimely death, because he was killed before he could die a natural death. That's why 25% of our generation remained. Otherwise, would have been, just one word in history. Such a community existed once upon a time. So that was the scale he has done in 1784 to 1799. These are the 15 years are the worst kind of nightmare to our community. I already said when history calls us Canara Christians. Means people residing on the coastal Karnataka, right from Karwar up to Mangalore and up to these Ghat section throughout. Means it comes in 3 districts of Karwar, Udupi, Mangalore, and also parts of Shivamogga, Chikmagalur, Coorg. This was the area.
Right.
So what happened on 1784? February 23 exactly, and it was a Wednesday. That day, his soldiers attacked our community, and that was Ash Wednesday. Ash Wednesday is the first day of our Lent season. You might have heard there is 40 days of fasting, yes. and it ends with the Good Friday, the death of Jesus. So it starts with Ash Wednesday. On Ash Wednesday, he attacked on our community, and that was the day of fasting and prayer, and people. It's compulsory to visit the churches. So people visited churches on Wednesday. There he called hold of the people right from Sunkeri of Karwar up to Mangalore. There were about 27 churches, big churches. Out of them he attacked all. All means all, did not spare a single one. 25 he managed to raise to the ground, and 2 he could not raise to the ground because local Hindus protected it. One is in my own place, my own native place where I stay even today, where I am born and staying today, Aikala village. My church could not be raised to the ground, only the roofing was damaged. Local Hindus, 3 village, Aikala, Talipadi and Yelinje, these 3 village heads came to our rescue. They gathered people, they stopped the soldiers from destruction of the church, and thus our church was saved. And we are honoring those Hindus even today during the annual festival. Every year we do that. And one church near Modibidri that was saved by Jains. They saved the church, and rest all 25 churches were razed to the ground. And one famous church of Milagres Church in Mangalore, he destroyed, and with those churches he built a mosque, and that mosque is existing right today. Even on the, it's called Bauta Gudde, right in front of Aloysius College, there is a mosque, yes, which has been built with the stones of Milagres Church. And there is Sultan Batteri. You might have heard the famous is a fort called Sultan Batteri was built with the stones of Rosario Church. Rosario Cathedral is the biggest church in Mangalore even today.
Okay.
That church was destroyed, and with those stones, Sultan Batteri was built. Now, that was the destruction he caused our churches, and he killed our people 75%. And he captured them live, and by walk he took them to Srirangapatna, right from Sringeri of Karwar up to Mangalore by 2 routes. One is via Sringeri, one is via Beltangre. Through routes, he took them to Srirangapatna by walk, and it took about 6 weeks to reach Srirangapatna. Even that is recorded in the history. And it was such a terrific journey. He did not spare the pregnant women. Even they were captive, they were taken. He did not spare even the elderly, did not spare the children. Nobody is spared. Everybody was taken captive. Some pregnant women got delivered on the way while on the walk, and many of the children died. Right. And that is a horrific story we have. And such a hopeless criminal is being made a big man. It's very, 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 very hurting for us.
I mean, this is very similar to the Taliban, taking over Kabul, and then you see pregnant women giving childbirths in flights and different mode of transports. And
that's what right in the beginning I told. Tipu Sultan is a father figure for them. They are doing exactly what their father figure did here. They are following his footsteps.
Right. In fact, he called his army also as the Mujahideen, some Mujahideen, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a part of the same agenda.
Same indoctrinated mindset. It is same indoctrination, religious indoctrination is the cause behind it.
But Robertji, I do have one question, and what you told about Sultan Batteri and Rosario Church, it's actually very interesting to know, because I've been to those places and I myself have been ignorant of the history, because we always assume that Hindus were the ones who were at the receiving end of Tipu Sultan's vicious politics. But then it's actually disheartening to know that even Catholic Christians were. Now that brings me to a question. There is now, like you say, when it comes to Hindus, he had explicitly given a reason that perhaps it's kafirs and that is why we need to be hunted down or converted. Now, when it comes to Christians, what is the reason? But is there any particular historical reason that he was brutal against the Christians as well?
No, when you say kafirs, even Christians are also kafirs. No, whoever doesn't believe in Allah are kafirs. It need not be Hindu only. It can be even Jews. It can be anybody in the world who does not believe in Allah is a kafir, obviously. So it's not a Hindu specific word, kafir. And here, historians say, historians are divided on this opinion. There is no unanimity. Some historians say that Christians were informers to the British. So that reason is given. That's why he attacked the entire community. Some historians disagree. Now let me assume for a moment it is true that Christians were informers of British. How many were informers? Some our population those days was 80,000. From throughout Karwar to Mangalore, our population was 80,000. Out of 80,000, how many were informers? 80, 800, 8,000, or all 80,000 were informers? There may be some limit. No, if some 8 people are informers, you punish them. It's all right. We understand. If 800 were informers, okay. But entire population of 80,000 people, punishing. That can't be a valid reason. You were informers. When you are the ruler, you have your own intelligence unit. You know who are the informers. You can catch hold of them and punish them. Killing the entire generation cannot be justified at any ground.
Right, and that brings me to my last question. When you see Tipu Jayanti being celebrated and the entire politicization of the issue happening, how did you react? How did you feel?
No, I was the first one to protest. I took my entire community together. See, Siddaramaiah decided on his, I think, second year of his, government. He made this vague idea of, we'll make him that was his disaster. That damaged him politically also very badly, because he shouldn't have done this. Whoever has celebrated, one thing you see in history, whoever has celebrated Tipu Sultan has not survived. He has been destroyed. Whoever, right up to our Malya, who got his sword also had to leave the country. Yeah, to that extent, whoever celebrated Tipu Sultan, yarigu barkat aglilla. Nobody has.
They have met their fate.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was really, we heard right from childhood. See, the problem with me is, I said I am from Aikala village, and I went to the church school. When I was in primary, the school is just opposite to the church. And every year during our annual festival, we used to, honor these three families. I said three village head families of Aikada, Talipadiguttu, and Yelinje for saving our church from Tipu Sultan. That was the history I heard right from childhood.
Right.
But in the same school, which is right in front of the textbook says he was a very good gentleman. In 4th standard, I read he used to give biscuit and milk to the prisoners. Who Tipu Sultan was giving? I don't know how he invented biscuits those days. No, he was giving biscuit and milk to prisoners. This is what we read in the textbook. And practically what we see is we are honoring Hindu families for saving our church. That was a contradiction we saw. And from our elders, everybody, entire community, everybody know our history. Whatever the textbook may say, we from our ancestors have learned our history, and it is well known, well recorded that he was the biggest enemy of our community. So celebrating him or making him a hero was unacceptable for us. But somehow, it had continued. But this was the last breaking point, celebrating his birthday. And that is enough is enough. We have to get to the streets and protest it. I gathered my community, the other side Hindus gathered their community, all protested throughout Karnataka, and government had to bow down. They may not agree, they bow down, but the situation is so pathetic that government had to, literally they couldn't, neither they could chew nor they could spit. That was the case with the government. So that was the anger with the people. That itself shows that if he was a hero, people had no reason to be angry. But if you say politicization, by politicization, you can't make the entire mass angry. The entire mass of Karnataka was angry, irrespective of whether he is a Hindu or a Christian. Everybody was angry. So that was the real anger which was there among the people. And Congress led it to a very disastrous level.
Absolutely. I mean, even if we look at our own history books, like you rightly said, I remember reading the state syllabus in Kannada history textbooks, and it only glorified about how Tipu Sultan pioneered rocket science, and that he was the first one in India to sort of launch missiles against their enemies, and that he was supposed to be the neo-modern Chanakya of some sorts. And this is extremely sad, but I'm really glad you could join us today to share these insights, and I'm sure this is one of the best interviews we've done, because not a lot of people actually know what you've been trying to do and what you've been saying for a very long time. And through our platform, thank you so much for sharing your views, and we do hope that you can join us again and again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Robert G. Have a nice day. And to everybody watching this, please do like, share, and subscribe. I'm your host, Sharan Sethi, signing off.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.